I never knew pulling a dying man from a river would end with him putting a target on my back. If you think you know how this story ends, subscribe and join me. Because what happened next changed everything. The black car was sinking fast. It wasn't the rain. The road was bone dry. A blown tire had sent it slicing through the guardrail and into the ink-black river. From her bike on the bridge above, she saw it happen. She was just a delivery girl late with a pizza, but she didn't think. She kicked off her shoes and jumped. The cold water stole her breath. She fought her way to the driver's window, already submerged. Inside, a man was slumped over the steering wheel, not moving. She pulled on the door handle. It was locked solid. Panic beat like a drum in her ears. She needed to break the glass. She fumbled at her delivery bag, still strapped to her chest. Her fingers closed around the metal pizza cutter. She slammed it against the window's edge. Once. Twice. On the third hit, a spiderweb of cracks appeared. She kicked at it with her heel, clearing a jagged hole. Water rushed into the car, pulling it down faster. She reached through the broken glass, ignoring the sharp pain in her arm. She found the man's collar and pulled. His head lolled back. He was heavy, a dead weight. She hooked her hands under his arms and braced her feet against the side of the car. With a final, desperate kick, she hauled them both backward into the murky water. The car disappeared into the darkness below. She hooked an arm around the man's chest, his head barely above the surface, and began the slow, agonizing swim toward the distant shore. Her legs burned. Her wet clothes felt like lead. They collapsed onto the muddy bank. She was gasping. He wasn't breathing. She rolled him onto his back and started CPR just like she'd seen in a movie. Push hard on the chest. Breathe into his mouth. She begged him out loud. Don't you dare die after all that. He choked. River water spewed from his lips as he rolled onto his side, coughing violently. Relief, sharp and sweet, flooded her. He was alive. She slumped back into the mud, utterly spent. For a long minute, the only sounds were his ragged breathing and the distant city hum. He finally pushed himself up onto his elbows. His eyes, dark and sharp, found her in the gloom. He took in her soaked delivery uniform, the pizza bag discarded nearby. You, he rasped, his voice raw from the river. You pull me out. I never knew pulling a dying man from a river would end with him putting a target on my back. If you think you know how this story ends, subscribe and join me. Because what happened next changed everything. The black car was sinking fast. It wasn't the rain. The road was bone dry. A blown tire had sent it slicing through the guardrail and into the ink-black river. From her bike on the bridge above, she saw it happen. She was just a delivery girl late with a pizza, but she didn't think. She kicked off her shoes and jumped. The cold water stole her breath. She fought her way to the driver's window, already submerged. Inside, a man was slumped over the steering wheel, not moving. She pulled on the door handle. It was locked solid. Panic beat like a drum in her ears. She needed to break the glass. She fumbled at her delivery bag, still strapped to her chest. Her fingers closed around the metal pizza cutter. She slammed it against the window's edge. Once. Twice. On the third hit, a spiderweb of cracks appeared. She kicked at it with her heel, clearing a jagged hole. Water rushed into the car, pulling it down faster. She reached through the broken glass, ignoring the sharp pain in her arm. She found the man's collar and pulled. His head lolled back. He was heavy, a dead weight. She hooked her hands under his arms and braced her feet against the side of the car. With a final, desperate kick, she hauled them both backward into the murky water. The car disappeared into the darkness below. She hooked an arm around the man's chest, his head barely above the surface, and began the slow, agonizing swim toward the distant shore. Her legs burned. Her wet clothes felt like lead. They collapsed onto the muddy bank. She was gasping. He wasn't breathing. She rolled him onto his back and started CPR, just like she'd seen in a movie. Push hard on the chest. Breathe into his mouth. She begged him out loud. Don't you dare die after all that. He choked. River water spewed from his lips as he rolled onto his side, coughing violently. Relief, sharp and sweet, flooded her. He was alive. She slumped back into the mud, utterly spent. For a long minute, the only sounds were his ragged breathing and the distant city hum. He finally pushed himself up onto his elbows. His eyes, dark and sharp, found her in the gloom. He took in her soaked delivery uniform, the pizza bag discarded nearby. "You," he rasped, his voice raw from the river. "You pulled me out." She just nodded, still catching her breath. He tried to stand, but his leg buckled. A grimace of pain flashed across his face. Even hurt and dripping wet, he had a dangerous energy about him, like a storm held barely in check. "We can't stay here," he said, his eyes scanning the empty banks and the bridge far above. It wasn't a request. It was an order. She felt a first cold trickle of fear. Who was this man? He pointed a shaky finger toward a line of trees beyond the bank. "My phone is gone. Do you have yours?" She patted her empty pockets. Her phone was at the bottom of the river with her bike. They were alone, stranded, with night coming on. He saw her hesitation, her fear. His expression changed, just a fraction. The hard edge softened. "Please," he said, and the words seemed to cost him something. It wasn't an accident. The tire was shot out. If they come to check their work. She didn't need him to finish. She moved to his side, letting him lean his considerable weight on her shoulders. Together, they stumbled into the cover of the trees, leaving the silent river behind. They stopped in a small clearing, deep enough in the woods to be hidden from the road. He sank down against a tree trunk, breathing hard. The adrenaline was fading, and the chill of their wet clothes was seeping into their bones. The delivery girl hugged herself, shivering. "Your arm," he said quietly. She looked down. A long, deep cut from the car window ran from her elbow to her wrist. It was still oozing blood, mixing with the river water. She hadn't even felt it. He reached into his own soaked leather jacket, his movements stiff. He pulled out a pocket knife. She flinched back. He paused, then slowly flipped out a small, hidden pair of scissors. "To cut a bandage," he explained, his voice low. He then tore a long, clean strip from the bottom of his own white dress shirt. "Give it here," he said. She hesitantly extended her arm. His hands, which looked like they could do serious damage, were surprisingly gentle. He cleaned the cut as best he could with a dry part of the cloth, then wrapped it tightly to stop the bleeding. He didn't look at her face, focusing on the task. "Thank you," she whispered. He gave a single, curt nod, tying off the bandage. Their eyes met, for a second too long. In his, she saw not just danger, but a deep, weary exhaustion. In hers, he saw no greed, no calculation, just the simple, shocking courage of a person who saw someone in trouble and jumped. "Why did you do it?" he asked suddenly. "You could have driven away. Called 911 from the bridge. You wouldn't be here, cold and hurt." She thought about it, watching the last light fade through the trees. "There wasn't time to call," she said simply. He leaned his head back against the tree, closing his eyes. A silence fell between them, different now. Not just strangers in danger, but two people tethered by a single, irreversible act. The first distant sirens echoed far away, but neither of them moved toward the sound. The cold was becoming unbearable. Her teeth chattered uncontrollably. He opened his eyes, watching her for a moment. "We need a fire," he stated. "Or hypothermia sets in." He tried to push himself up again, but his injured leg gave another sickening throb of pain. "You stay. Tell me what to do," she said, standing. She was a delivery girl. She was used to following directions to find places. He nodded, instructing her to gather only dry, dead twigs from under the thicker bushes and to find a flat stone. She worked quickly, her body warming with the effort. She brought the pile back to the clearing. From another pocket, he produced a small, waterproof metal case. Inside was a lighter. He lit a small nest of twigs on the stone, and she carefully fed the tiny flame until it grew into a steady, warm fire. The light danced on their faces. He was older than she first thought, lines of stress and experience around his eyes. Handsome in a worn, broken way. He held his hands out to the flames. They will be looking for a body, he said, staring into the fire. When they don't find one, they will look for a man and a woman, wet and on foot. Who are they? She asked, the question hanging in the smoky air. He was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Business rivals, he finally said, the term vague and heavy. I made a decision. A merciful one. They saw it as a weakness. An opening. She understood then. The car, the river, the shot-out tire. This wasn't a random crime. This was a targeted execution. And she had pulled the target out of the water. The reality of her situation settled over her, colder than the river. You're in danger because of me, he said, finally looking at her. I will get you out of it. You have my word. It was an oath, spoken with a gravity she had never heard before. The fire crackled between them, a tiny beacon of warmth in a suddenly much darker world. A rustle in the bushes. They both froze. His hand shot out, pushing her slightly behind him. His other hand closed around a heavy, fire-blackened branch. The fear was instant and electric. Footsteps, crunching on leaves, coming closer. A figure emerged from the shadows. Not a menacing enforcer, but an older man in a simple jacket, his face etched with panic. He stopped short at the sight of the fire and the two ragged people by it. Boss, the man whispered, his voice trembling with disbelief. The tension left the injured man's shoulders. Leo, he breathed out. The older man, Leo, rushed forward, but stopped a few feet away, his eyes taking in the scene, the makeshift bandage, the wet clothes, the delivery girl. His gaze held no threat toward her, only profound concern. When the car tracker went dead in the river, Leo's voice broke. He quickly shrugged off his own jacket and draped it over his boss's shoulders. Then, to the girl's shock, Leo turned to her and gave a small, solemn bow of his head. Thank you, he said, and she could tell he meant it with his whole soul. We need to move. Now, the boss said, using Leo to pull himself upright. Is the secondary car secure? Leo nodded. 1/2 mile east. Clean and untraceable. The plan was already in motion. This was a world of backup plans and safe cars. The boss turned to the delivery girl. Come with us. To a safe place. We'll get you warm, get you proper medical care for that arm. It was a choice. She could walk to the road, flag down a car, go back to her normal life. But the men who shot out the tire knew someone had been on that bridge. They might be looking for her bike right now. She looked at the kind worry in Leo's eyes and the unspoken promise in the boss's. Her normal life felt 1,000,000 miles away. She nodded silently. Leo offered her his arm for support as the three of them moved carefully, quietly, deeper into the woods, leaving the warm fire to burn itself out alone. The safe place was a small, tidy apartment above a closed flower shop in a quiet part of the city. It was plain, almost empty. Leo had bandaged the boss's leg, a deep bruise and a wrench, no break, and produced dry, soft clothes for both of them. She now wore a faded sweatshirt and sweatpants that were too big. Leo made soup in the small kitchen. The boss sat at the small table, staring at his hands. The dynamic was clear. Leo was more than an employee. He was family. The delivery girl sat opposite, sipping the hot broth, feeling life slowly return to her limbs. You never asked my name, she said quietly. He looked up, meeting her gaze. Names are complicated in my world, he said. They can be used. Right now, you are the person who saved my life. That is more important than any name. What should I call you then, she asked. He considered it. Vincent, he said finally. It wasn't his real name, she could tell. But it was a gift. A piece of him to hold on to. I'm Mia, she offered. He repeated it softly. Mia. Leo finished in the kitchen and came to the table, his face grave. The word is out. They found the car. No body. They know you're alive. They are agitated. They've put a price on information. He glanced at Mia, the meaning clear. The price was for finding him. Anyone looking for him would now also be looking for her. Vincent's jaw tightened. We stay dark here. 2 days. Then we move to the lake house. Mia felt a surge of panic. 2 days? I have a job. My apartment, my cat. Her ordinary concerns sounded so small and fragile in this room. Vincent's expression softened. Leo will take care of it. Your job will understand a family emergency. Your cat will be fed. Your rent will be paid. He saw her protest forming. This is my responsibility. This is how I fix what I broke. His tone left no room for argument. She was trapped, not by him, but by the situation he inhabited. The safe place started to feel like a very beautiful cage. Night fell. Leo took the couch. Vincent insisted Mia take the bedroom. She lay in the dark, in a stranger's bed, her mind racing. The day replayed in flashes. The car plunging, the cold water, the fire in the woods, the profound gratitude in Leo's eyes, the weight of Vincent's promise. She couldn't sleep. She crept out to the living room for a glass of water. Vincent was sitting by the window, keeping watch on the silent street below. He didn't turn around. Can't sleep either? He asked softly. She shook her head, then realized he couldn't see her. No. She came to stand near the window, looking out at the empty sidewalks. The city looked different now, full of hidden threats and unseen watchers. I run a waste management company, he said out of nowhere, his voice a low rumble in the dark. At least, that's what the official documents say. My father built it. His methods were harsh. I've been trying to change things. To be legitimate. To be better. He sighed, a sound of immense tiredness. The man who ordered the hit, he was my father's right hand. He prefers the old ways. She understood now. His merciful decision was a move toward going straight. It was seen as betrayal. So saving you, she said. I messed up their plans. He finally turned to look at her, his face shadowed. No. You gave me a chance to finish what I started. They stood there in the quiet dark, side by side. The space between them felt charged, not with romance, but with a profound, shared understanding. Two people from different worlds, whose paths should never have crossed, now bound together by fate and a single act of courage. Get some rest, Mia, he said, his voice gentler than she'd heard it. You're safe tonight. I'm watching. She believed him. As she went back to the bedroom, she knew the danger was still out there, circling. But for the first time since she jumped off that bridge, she didn't feel entirely alone. The story was no longer just about survival. It was about what he, and now she, would do next. Morning light filtered through the blinds. Mia woke to the smell of coffee and the low murmur of voices. Vincent and Leo were at the small table, a map spread between them. They stopped talking when she entered. Leo gave her a warm smile and slid a fresh cup of coffee toward her. We've laid a false trail, Leo said quietly. A security camera at a gas station 30 miles away caught a glimpse of a man with a limp and a woman matching your description. It will buy us time. Mia understood. They were using the enemy's search against them. Vincent watched her. The lake house is secure. Isolated. We go tonight. His tone was all business, but his eyes held a question. He was still giving her a choice. She could walk away with Leo's protection. But walking away meant going back to a life that might now have a target on it. I'll go, she said. She didn't know why, entirely. Maybe it was the fear of being alone with this. Or maybe it was the look in his eyes and need, not just for protection, but for a witness to the man he was trying to become. Leo spent the day teaching her simple things. How to check a car for a tracking device. How to spot if you're being followed in a crowd. It was scary, but he was a kind teacher. He treated her like a favorite niece who needed to learn important rules. Vincent mostly stayed by the window, lost in thought. His world was one of constant calculation. Mia saw the weight of it on him. She brought him a fresh cup of coffee. He took it, his fingers brushing hers. A simple touch. It startled them both. You shouldn't be involved in this, he said, not looking at her. You should be delivering pizzas, worrying about your cat. She sat down across from him. I am worried about my cat. But I'm here now. So teach me how to not get you killed. A faint, almost invisible smile touched his lips. They moved under the cover of a heavy, starless night. Leo drove an old, unremarkable sedan. Vincent sat in the passenger seat, constantly checking mirrors. Mia was in the back, clutching her small bag of borrowed clothes. The city lights faded behind them. They drove for 2 hours in near silence. The tension was a living thing in the car. Every set of headlights behind them felt like a threat. Vincent would give Leo a quiet instruction: take this exit, slow down before that curve, to test if a car was following. Eventually, they turned onto a gravel road that wound deep into a forest of tall, dark pines. The air grew cooler. Finally, headlights illuminated a large, rustic house made of logs and glass, perched on the edge of a vast, dark lake. It looked lonely and peaceful. Leo carried bags inside. The house was beautiful, but felt unused, like a museum. Everything was perfect and cold. Mia stood in the great room, looking at the black lake through the wall of windows. Vincent came up beside her, leaning on a cane Leo had found for him. "My father built this," Vincent said. "For quiet meetings. For hiding people." He looked around with distaste. It never felt like a home. Mia understood. It was another tool, another piece of his old life. He was surrounded by the ghosts of his father's choices. Leo started a fire in the big stone fireplace. The warmth began to chase the chill from the room. He announced he would take the first watch and disappeared onto a covered deck outside with a pair of binoculars. Mia and Vincent were alone by the crackling fire. The quiet was different here. It wasn't the tense quiet of the safe house. It was vast and deep. Vincent lowered himself into an armchair with a soft groan, his injured legs stretched out. Mia sat on the sofa nearby. They didn't speak. They just listened to the fire and the absolute silence of the lake. Days settled into a strange, quiet rhythm. Leo was their link to the outside world, making careful, encrypted calls. Mia learned the house. She found a well-stocked pantry and started making meals. It was something normal to do, a way to help. Vincent's leg was healing. He began to move around the house without the cane, though he still limped. He watched her cook one afternoon. "You're good at that," he remarked. She shrugged. "When you deliver food, you learn what people like. It's just following directions." "It's more than that," he said quietly. "It's taking care of someone." The observation hung in the air. He had spent his life in a world of taking, not giving. Her simple act of making soup felt like a foreign language to him. One evening, Leo came in from his perimeter check looking grim. "They've discounted the gas station lead. They're focusing the search closer to the river again. It's a matter of time before they widen the circle." The safe bubble they had here was shrinking. After Leo went to bed, Mia found Vincent on the dock behind the house. He was just staring at the water, his hands in his pockets. "Thinking of going for a swim?" she asked, trying to lighten the mood. He didn't smile. "I was thinking about the water in the car," he said. "How dark it was. How final. I had made my peace with it. Then I saw a shape at the window. I thought it was an angel, or a hallucination." He finally looked at her. It was just a girl with a pizza cutter. She stood next to him, their shoulders almost touching. "Just a girl," she echoed. But they both knew it wasn't true. That girl had changed everything. The lake water lapped softly at the dock posts. For a moment, the danger felt very far away. Vincent started teaching her chess. He said it was good for strategy. They would sit for hours at the wooden table, the board between them. He was a ruthless player, but patient with her mistakes. She began to learn his patterns, to anticipate his moves. "You're getting better," he said one afternoon after she nearly trapped his bishop. There was real pride in his voice. No one had ever been proud of her for anything like this. It made her feel strong in a new way. Leo brought back news. The rival, the man from his father's time, was getting impatient. He was making moves on Vincent's legitimate businesses, trying to force him out into the open. "He's burning down what you're trying to build, boss," Leo said, his face lined with worry. That night, Mia saw the pressure crushing Vincent. He stood in the dark living room, his back to her, shoulders tight. She didn't say anything. She just walked over and started resetting the chessboard on the table. He watched her for a minute, then sat down. They played in silence. This time, She played more aggressively. She sacrificed a rook to expose his king. He looked at the board, then at her surprised. "That's a risky move," he said. "Sometimes you have to lose something important to win the game," she replied, holding his gaze. He studied the board, then slowly nodded. He saw her point. It wasn't just about chess. He reached out and moved his king, putting himself in checkmate. "You win," he said softly. He wasn't talking about the game. He was telling her he understood the lesson. Sometimes you have to sacrifice to end the fight. A storm rolled over the lake. Thunder echoed in the distance. The power flickered once, then went out completely. Leo was in town on a supply run. For the first time since the river, Mia and Vincent were completely alone in the dark. They lit candles. The house became a cave of flickering shadows. The wind howled outside. It should have felt scary, but inside, with the candles glowing, it felt private, safe in its own way. They sat on the rug in front of the cold fireplace. He told her about his mother, a pianist who died when he was young. He told her how his father's grief turned him hard, and how the business became his only family. Mia told him about growing up in foster care, about how her delivery job was the first thing that ever truly felt like hers. "You have no one to answer to," he said, almost in wonder. "No legacy to carry. It sounds free." She shook her head. "It's lonely. You have Leo. You have a whole world, even if it's a bad one. I just have a studio apartment and a cat." The candlelight danced in his eyes. "You have more courage than anyone in my world," he said. The space between them on the rug seemed to shrink. The storm raged, but in their little circle of light, the world was calm. He reached out slowly and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His touch was featherlight. The moment was fragile. A loud crack of thunder made them both jump. The spell broke. He pulled his hand back, clearing his throat. "We should check the generator," he said, his voice rough. But neither of them moved for a long time. The morning after the storm was crystal clear. Leo returned, his car splattered with mud. He'd heard chatter. The enemy was offering more money for information. A lot more. "It's reaching a wider network," Leo warned. "Sooner or later, someone will remember an old lake house." A decision had been made in the night. Vincent could no longer hide. "I have to go back. I have to face him," Vincent told them at the breakfast table. His voice was calm, final. "But I do it on my terms, not from the shadows." He outlined a plan. He would call a meeting of all the remaining captains in his organization. A public meeting at a neutral, legitimate location, a downtown hotel. He would expose the treachery of the old right-hand man. It was a direct challenge. A dangerous one. "It's a good chess move," Mia said quietly. "You're bringing the fight to his home board, the world of meetings and reputation." Vincent nodded at her, a spark of fierce gratitude in his eyes. She had understood perfectly. Leo was afraid. He argued for more time, for a different approach. But Vincent's mind was set. "I won't live in my father's shadow, or in this man's crosshairs, any longer. And I won't let you two live in hiding because of me." He looked at Mia. "Especially you." The plan included her. She would go with Leo to a separate, secure location until it was over. Vincent insisted. She was the one piece he refused to put in danger. She hated the idea. After everything, being sent away felt like a loss. As they prepared to leave the lake house, Mia packed her small bag. She felt a deep ache. This strange, quiet interlude was over. The real world, with all its violence and consequences, was waiting. She took one last look at the chessboard, still set up from their last game. They drove back to the city in daylight. This time, Vincent rode with Mia in the back of a different car, driven by a new, trusted man Leo had called. The mood was heavy. Vincent was going over the speech he would give, his face a mask of concentration. He reached over and took her hand. He didn't look at her, just held her hand firmly in his, staring straight ahead. It was a gesture of connection, of needing strength. She held his hand back just as tight. No words were needed. The car dropped them at another anonymous safe house, closer to the city center. This one was a sleek, modern condo. Leo was already there, coordinating security for the meeting, which was set for the next day. The final pieces were moving. That evening, Vincent gave Mia a phone. Leo's number is 1. Mine is 2. If anything feels wrong, you call. You don't hesitate. He was putting on his armor, the kind, weary man from the lake house receding behind the face of the boss. You'll win, she said, with a certainty she didn't fully feel. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. He looked at her as if memorizing her face. It was a goodbye, just in case. He leaned his forehead against hers, closing his eyes for a long moment. Then he let her go, turned, and walked into the other room with Leo. The door closed. Mia was alone. The silence in the condo was deafening. She felt a cold fear, deeper than when she was in the river. This was worse. This was waiting. She sat on the floor, back against the wall, clutching the phone. She stared at the door he had walked through, willing him to come back through it. The hours stretched on. Night fell. The city lights glittered outside, beautiful and indifferent to the battle being prepared within it. Morning came. Mia hadn't slept. She heard Vincent and Leo moving in the other room, the low sound of their voices. Today was the day. Leo left first, to secure the location. Vincent emerged, dressed in a perfectly tailored, dark suit. He looked powerful, unreachable. He stopped in front of her. The car will take you to Leo's cousin. She has a house in the suburbs. You'll be safe there. His voice was formal, distant. The boss giving an order. She just nodded, her throat too tight to speak. He turned to leave. He was at the door when her voice broke free. Vincent. He stopped, his hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. You come back, she said, the words fierce and quiet. You come back and you tell me you won. He gave a single, sharp nod. Then he was gone. The driver arrived for her minutes later. The ride to the suburbs was a blur. Leo's cousin was a kind, older woman who asked no questions. She showed Mia to a sunny guest room and made her tea. Mia sat on the bed, the phone a dead weight in her hand. She turned on the small TV in the room, flipping to a local news channel. She was looking for any report, a disturbance, a shooting, anything. There was nothing. The silence was torture. Hours passed. The tea grew cold. She couldn't sit still. She paced the small room. She replayed every moment from the river to the lake house to his forehead against hers. The fear was a physical pain in her chest. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Her heart stopped. It was a photo. A blurry, distant photo taken through a window. It showed a hotel conference room. Vincent was standing at the head of a long table, speaking. Men were seated around it listening. The old right-hand man was there, his face dark. Another text followed. He's doing it. He's exposing everything. It's happening now. It had to be from one of Leo's men. The meeting was underway. The dangerous, direct play was in motion. Mia stared at the image of Vincent, standing tall in his suit. This was the moment that decided everything. All she could do now was wait. And hope. The waiting was agony. The text stopped. The news showed nothing. The kind cousin brought a sandwich, but Mia couldn't eat. She just stared at the phone, willing it to ring. Every minute felt like an hour. The sunny room felt like a prison. Her phone finally buzzed. It was Vincent's number 2 on the speed dial. She fumbled to answer. Hello. Her voice was a shaky whisper. There was a long pause on the other end, filled with ragged breathing. Her blood ran cold. It wasn't Vincent's voice. It was Leo's, and it was thick with tears. Mia, he choked out. That one word told her everything. Something had gone horribly wrong. The world seemed to tilt. She sank to the floor. Is he? She couldn't finish the sentence. No, Leo said quickly, fighting for control. He's alive. But there was an incident. At the meeting. He's been shot. We're at the private clinic. The words hit her like physical blows. Shot. Clinic. I'm coming, she said, already scrambling to her feet. No. Leo's voice was sharp, then softened with pain. It's not safe. They'll be watching the clinics. You have to stay where you are. He made me promise. She could hear the anguish in his voice. He was torn between his duty to his boss and his own heart. "How bad is it?" she demanded, her own tears falling now. A longer pause. "It's bad, Mia. He lost a lot of blood. He's in surgery." Leo's voice broke. He was so brave. He laid it all out there. He showed them the proof of the betrayals right before the chaos started. The call ended with Leo's promise to update her. Mia sat on the floor, hugging her knees. The image of Vincent in his suit, so strong and determined, was replaced by a terrifying new one. Vincent bleeding on a conference room floor. The plan had worked, but the cost was too high. The updates came in fragments. The surgery was long. He was in critical condition. The bullet had missed his heart by an inch. Leo's texts were terse, haunted. Mia learned more from a news alert on the TV. There was a brief report of a disturbance at a luxury hotel. Police responded, no suspects in custody. The underworld had cleaned up its own mess. Vincent survived the surgery. He was unconscious and would be for some time. The danger was not over. Infection complications. Leo said the clinic was locked down, guarded by men who were still loyal. The power struggle was in a fragile, bloody pause. Mia felt utterly helpless. She was safe in a quiet house, while the man who had changed her life fought for his. She replayed their last moment, his forehead against hers. It felt like a final goodbye, and she hated it. She should have said more. Done more. A new fear crept in. If Vincent didn't make it, what then? The old rival would take everything. Leo would be in danger. And she knew too much. The safety Vincent promised could vanish with his last breath. The kindness of Leo's cousin suddenly felt fragile. She couldn't just wait. She called Leo. "I need to see him," she said, her voice quiet but steel. "I'm not asking to go to the clinic. But when he's awake, when it's safe to move him, I need to be there. You have to help me." She was no longer just a delivery girl caught in the storm. She was someone making a demand. Leo was quiet for a long time. "He'd skin me alive," he said finally. But there was a reluctant respect in his tone. "When the doctor says he can be moved to a recovery house, I'll arrange it, but not a word. To anyone." It was a risk. It was a conspiracy between the driver and the delivery girl against the boss's orders. It was a promise. 3 days passed. Mia existed in a fog of worry. Then a simple text from Leo. "Tonight, 2 a.m. Be ready." Her heart hammered. This was it. The cousin was asleep. Mia left a thank you note on the pillow and crept downstairs to wait by the front window. A dark van with tinted windows pulled up silently at exactly 2. The side door slid open. Leo was inside, looking older and wearier than she'd ever seen him. He helped her in. The van drove for what felt like forever, winding through sleeping neighborhoods. They arrived at a small, nondescript house in a neighborhood of identical homes. It was the perfect place to hide. Leo led her inside, through a living room, to a closed bedroom door. "He's awake," Leo whispered. "But he's weak. And he's not happy with me right now." He gave her a sad, small smile and nudged the door open. The room was dim, lit by a small lamp. Vincent was propped up in a hospital bed, pale and connected to monitors. His eyes were closed. But when the door clicked shut, they opened. They found her immediately. A storm of emotions crossed his face. Shock, anger, then a profound, weakening relief. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped, his voice barely a whisper. It lacked all its old command. She walked to the side of the bed. "You don't get to tell me what to do," she said softly. "Not about this." She carefully reached out and took his hand. His fingers were cool. He didn't pull away. He closed his eyes again, and a single tear escaped, tracing a path down his temple. He held onto her hand like it was the only thing anchoring him to the world. Mia stayed. Leo brought a cot into the room. She became part of the routine of recovery, helping the day nurse, making sure he drank water, learning how to adjust the pillows to ease his pain. The tough boss was gone. In his place was a vulnerable, frustrated man who hated being weak. He told her what happened. The meeting had been a triumph at first. He had the evidence. The old guard was exposed, humiliated. But as he turned to leave, a young, loyal soldier of the rival, seeking to prove himself, pulled a gun. Chaos erupted. Leo had tackled the shooter, but not before a single, wild shot found its mark. Leo saved my life. Again, Vincent said, watching the door where Leo often stood guard. He took a knife in the arm, stopping the guy from finishing the job. Mia understood now the depth of the bond and the weight of the guilt Vincent carried for putting his oldest friend in danger. As Vincent grew stronger, they talked. Not about business or danger, but about small things. What her cat was like. What music he secretly enjoyed. What they would do if they could go anywhere. It was a quiet, healing space in the eye of the hurricane. One afternoon, he was sitting in a chair by the window, managing without help. She was folding a blanket. When I was on that floor, he said, staring out at the sunny street, the last thing I thought of wasn't the business or the money or even the man who shot me. He looked at her. It was the look on your face on the riverbank, telling me not to die. It was the only thing I wanted to get back to. The room was very still. She put the blanket down. She walked over and knelt in front of his chair, so they were eye to eye. She didn't kiss him. She just looked at him, seeing the man beneath the boss, the survivor beneath the suit. He cupped her face, his thumbs stroking her cheek. It was a silent promise. A new beginning, forged in river water and blood. Weeks later, Vincent was nearly healed. The landscape had changed. With the old rival publicly exposed as a traitor, his support had crumbled. Vincent's legitimate businesses were secure. The waste management company was being sold. He was keeping his promise to be better. He and Mia sat on a park bench by a small pond, far from the city. It was a crisp, normal day. Leo watched from a discreet distance, finally looking at peace. It's not over, Vincent said. There will always be loose ends. Someone with a grudge. It's the life I chose. I know, Mia said. She wasn't naive anymore. But it's a different life now. He nodded. He pulled a small, plain box from his pocket. It wasn't a ring. Inside was a single, old-fashioned key. It's to a bakery, he said. A little place in a quiet town up north. The owner is retiring. It's fully paid for. The apartment above it is sunny. Good for a cat. She stared at the key, then at him, confused. A bakery? You said you liked following directions. Taking care of people, he said, a real smile finally reaching his eyes. It has nothing to do with me. It's yours, if you want it. It was the ultimate gift. Not protection, not money, but freedom. A chance at her own normal life, away from all of this. Her heart swelled. What about you? She asked quietly. He took her hand. I have a lot to make right. It will take time. And I'll have to travel. But every baker needs a regular customer. Someone to help taste test the new recipes. He wasn't asking her to wait. He was asking for a chance. A chance to become a man who could walk into a bakery in the daylight, with no shadows trailing him. She closed her fingers around the key, and then around his hand. She looked at the pond, at the ducks, at the ordinary, beautiful world. I make a pretty good chocolate croissant, she said. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. There were no more words needed. The delivery girl had pulled the drowning man from the dark water. And now, slowly, together, they were walking toward the light.